Hello, this is R. Payne here. Just wanted to do a brief recap of the Fort Myers City Council deadlock when it comes to getting rid of illegal aliens by deputizing their police force to work with ICE. There were three ladies who didn't want to comply with the order. So I'm going to just go through a couple of things and give you an update of where they are now. They had a lot of emergency meetings this week. I think it was Friday to handle this situation. So, but I'm gonna share with you some things on the status of that. Now, the reason why I think it's important is because you got to be on the right side of history. Listen, you can't let your heartstrings and your emotions cloud your judgment. Is the safety of your citizens uh, as important or more important than a few illegal aliens that you might have grown attached to in the backdrop of getting rid of heinous criminals and things of that nature? So you got to weigh all these things. And if you're not up for that task to make the hard decisions, you shouldn't be in positions of power. There were three ladies on a council, Fort Myers Council, and they're crying. I mean, they're absolutely boo-hoo, whining and crying with emotions because they can't make the hard decisions. And a lot of pressure was put on them from the mayor to the governor on them making this decision. Now, my thing is, I'm gonna let this play, and you guys tell me what you think. And then, I'm gonna have one recap, and then we're gonna go into it. The resolution is under pressure. Okay, so check this out. So let me just share with you what's going on. All right, let's go ahead and let's have it. Let's get it started.
Fort Myers made national news today, and it all had to do with immigration. Three of the city's council members voted against an agreement that would have allowed ICE to train the Fort Myers Police Department, basically giving them the power to detain and arrest people who are here illegally. State leaders are outraged. Here's why. Governor Ron DeSantis signed a law that says local law enforcement is required to participate in immigration enforcement. And we've seen various communities jump on board. Most recently, Marco Island. In part, DeSantis says Florida will ensure its laws are followed. And the man vying for his seat, Representative Byron Donalds, says these councilwomen, Darla Bunk, Diana Giraldo, and Carolyn Watson, quote, should be removed.
Let me just stop it there for a second. Listen, I have no doubt that these ladies, have, I guess, good intentions. But the point really is that when it comes to illegal immigrants, there are a lot of bad people that got wrapped up in this net, this wave, this horde of people that the Biden administrative let in. We can't afford to start mincing words on who got to get kicked out of the country. And so, but here's my thing, and this is a big thing. If it was illegal for any city council to go against the governor's ordinance, why was this thing even brought up for a vote? That's what I'm saying. And I blame the men on the council for that. There's got to be there's three men, by the way. They all voted to do the right thing. And the three women on the council, all crying like babies, voted against it for all kinds of bullshit reasons. And so they got themselves in a pickle. And so we're going to play the rest of this, and then we're going to play the tape that has them changing their vote.
One of the concerns the women brought up include racial profiling. And then there's the three who voted to pass it, including Mayor Kevin Anderson and Councilman Fred Burson and Liston Bochette. Attorney General James Upmeyer called this deadlock, quote, troubling.
Listen, I know nobody wants to say this shit, right? But is anybody surprised that the three men, the men who voted for this are, white? One of them is Hispanic, I believe, as well, white. They voted to go ahead and do the right thing, and the women voted against it. That begs the larger question about liberal women in politics and the way they vote. It's almost so predictable that you could tell it could be manipulated, especially if there's a black woman on there, right? Because it's the black woman, she immediately started talking about slavery. I mean, it's time to kind of move forward a little bit, and try to look for the future and what's important for America as Americans. I mean, I'm going back and forth with people who hate Trump and stuff like that. And I'm saying, listen, I'm not no big fan of the man. All I'm just saying is we can't keep going down this path of liberalism and anything goism, wokeism, this stuff where the majority of people are put under pressure to appease the small minorities. And I'm not even talking about blacks when I say that. I'm talking about the alphabet community. I'm talking about people with other kind of afflictions and all kinds of shit. So it's just strange. This is just like a microcosm of what's going on in the country.
And says he's launching an investigation. Fort Myers made national news.
All right, so that's enough for this one. So I'm gonna go to the next one, and we're gonna get into what happened to these ladies, what happens to the councilmen's votes, and how they're, you know, how they were made to kind of come to grips with reality, and they can't just keep relying on the fact that they want things to be all peachy keen for every illegal alien. It's just not possible. It's just not possible to parse it out. If you're either here legally or not legal or illegal. Now, you might hear some people talking about the fact that, it's not a crime to be here illegally. Well, it's not entirely true. You know what I'm saying? It really isn't. There's civil implications and there's criminal implications. So, for example, if you stay here past the time when your visa expires, that could be from a year to 10 years if they don't catch you. But you become here illegally from a civil basis, right? It's not a criminal charge, not per se, but it's civilly. You are liable. You are an illegal alien after your visa expires, and if you don't get a green card. And it's a lot of people in that status. These people have relationships. These people have jobs. These people have been productive citizens, but their status is still illegal from a civil standpoint. Now, if you cross the border illegally without going through the proper channels and being registered, that's a criminal misdemeanor the first time you get caught. The second time you get caught is a criminal felony if they kick you out and you come back, right? That's a criminal felony. So, but both civil and criminal illegality is both subject to deportation. You could look that shit up. So just because it's not a criminal offense doesn't mean that you're not subject to deportation, right? So there's going to be a lot of cases like that. And what the administration is saying to you is that they're not the primary target, but they're not going to promise you that if they catch you, they're not going to deport you. You know what I'm saying? So if you are harboring real criminals and you're around real criminals and your status is illegal, even if it's just a civil infraction, you still can get kicked out. Yeah, that's you're not the priority, but you still can get kicked out. There's a case going on right now where a man's married to a woman and she's been here for years, but she never got her status fixed after her visa ran out. And so they went to Puerto Rico, and on coming home, just going through customs, she gets caught. Now, we could boo-hoo, whine, and cry over that. I would have never took my wife out of in contiguous states if I knew with all this shit going on. This guy was an idiot. If you got to pass through all these customs and shit, even if you're going to Puerto Rico, and she gets flagged, and now she's in a holding center. It's just consistent with the law. It's sad, but it's still consistent with the law. It's crazy. So listen, you know what? You got to be careful. If you're not here under full legal status, you are subject to what's going on. As quiet as it's kept. There's no way to mince words with that. And the Republican administration, this administration needs to be fair and honest with people that, we're looking for criminals, but if we catch you and you're here illegally, you're subject to deportation.
Can you imagine how difficult this is for you? the argument, and I know there's no malintent to it, that we would risk federal or state funding if I don't sign up for this. It is a tumultuous day and age, and this is a day I hate sitting in the seat, but my city's not for sale.
Several days later.
Florida's Attorney General James Uthmeyer says city council members down in Fort Myers are, quote, breaking the law. That is because the city council recently voted down an immigration agreement.
Well, they didn't vote down it. They didn't vote it down. It was 3-3, and they don't have no tiebreakers. So in the instance of a tie, it goes to the no side. You know what I'm saying? So they should have some way to arbitrate a tie vote, or should have an odd number of council members. Hey, that might be a novel idea as opposed to having just 6. How about that? But anyway, it's just so stupid. Anyway, so let's go. So now the pressure is on them because they had a vote. And I say once again, why the hell was this even a vote at this council if they don't have the juice to make it stick?
Agreement between ICE and the local police department down there. And the question is, what happens next? Uthmeyer says potentially removal.
Madam Clerk, roll call vote, please.
Monday night, Fort Myers City Council rejected a 287G agreement between police and federal immigration officials, a deal that would have bolstered officer training, allowing them to help with detainment and deportation.
Motion fails 3-3.
That split vote came after several members, through tears, felt the change could lead to racial profiling and hurt more than help.
I can't stand behind this as an immigrant, the only immigrant sitting in this council.
It's a decision that may soon have dire consequences. So says Florida's Attorney General James Uthmeyer.
By preventing law enforcement from doing that, they are breaking the law.
The state's top cop sending this letter to the council saying the move violates Florida's ban on sanctuary city policies. Without a reversal, Uthmeyer warns, penalties are coming.
What kind of penalties could they face? Because it looked like it was civil, it could be criminal.
Yeah, I mean, there are civil penalties certainly laid out there. The governor has suspension powers, so he's proven he's not one to sit on his hands too long. If they're standing in the way and they're preventing law enforcement from participating, he typically will take people out of that position and get somebody in that's willing to do their job. So we're looking at all options. Again, we put them on notice, but we're not going to wait long. If they don't immediately correct their problem, we will take action.
Well, see, this is the thing, right? This is where government fails, all right? If their decision can't stand because it's breaking the law, then their bylaws needs to be upgraded to say that there's certain government laws that can't come to the council for vote. Just, you know what I'm saying? If this whole issue of sanctuary city, even for this little part of like the little small cities and municipalities, they got these boards. And if they can't decide how the police are going to operate in their little township because of the governor's ordinance, then they shouldn't be allowed to vote on it. It shouldn't be up for discussion. So when somebody comes from the council meeting and say, hey, what are you going to do with our cops? Can we keep our cops from working with ICE? Well, the answer should be, our hands are tied on that particular matter, because the governor, the attorney general, everybody says that if this state has its cops working with ICE in accordance with federal law, then nobody has the right to change that. So this can't come to the council for a vote. It's as simple as that. So they shouldn't even be in this pickle, because they should have never talked about this shit in the first place.
Is the timeline there? What is immediate to you?
Stay tuned.
Boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. So we got to follow up on a story that I covered just a few days ago involving a woke city council out of Fort Myers, Florida, that decided to vote against allowing ICE to train local police officers to deport illegal immigrants, right? Basically, ICE would be training certain police officers in the area to be able to deal with illegal immigrants, okay? And The woke city council said, no, we don't want to allow this to happen. We do not want to help law enforcement enforce laws because of racism, hate, and bigotry.
Fort Myers City Council members had to choose whether to allow some FMPD officers to be trained by ICE in order to enforce immigration laws. Chief Fields argued that this is necessary for handling situations involving illegal immigrants.
This is not to develop a task force or team to out and actively seek out illegal immigrants. It's training officers so that when an officer comes in contact with someone who's violating law, and now they determine that they're illegal, right now they have to wait on ICE, and ICE can't respond. So these officers will be trained as ICE officers.
He brought up recent cases where he says this training could have helped.
We did have a homicide recently where a body was dismembered. Didn't we have a sexual assault in which the suspect was?
Fields ultimately failed to convince the entire council.
So how are we going to make sure that we're not racially profiling people?
It's the federal government's fault that we're in this position. They're putting it on us again. They need to make legal immigration smoother. And that way they wouldn't have illegal immigration.
Me as coming.
See, that was ignorant too. You know what I'm saying? Listen, the pipeline for legal immigration isn't that complicated if you go look it up. The fact is that the demand is so heavy, it creates a black market. For example, there was in 2018, there was 32 million people who wanted to become American citizens, but they only gave out 1 million green cards that year. They only, I guess, awarded 1 million green cards. So when you have 32 million people in demand and only 1 million in supply, it creates a black market because there's no way. Now, let's talk about the actual supply of green cards. One of the biggest issues in our country is that when people come here, they have to be assimilated into American culture. And no matter how big we are, we can't assimilate 100 million people in any short order fashion. That's why you limit it. Okay, for that same year, only 900 people became citizens. I mean, 900,000, some shit like that, right? So all I'm trying to say is the number of citizens after the long string of having a green card, establishing residency, speaking English, and all that kind of stuff, it's only like 900,000 a year. Those people, by the time they become citizens, they actually are Americanized. They might still have some of their old culture, their old, cultural mores and stuff, but they speak English. They're part of the American diaspora. They build some allegiance to this country, not only their old home country, right? So, but if you have 20 million people doing that, the assimilation process actually gets lost. That's why that's a big issue. Right? That's one of the big issues. And with that 20 million people, you got to say if it's only 10 or 20% of them who are hardened criminals, just that small amount of percentage can cause a lot of damage. Right? Just like in our regular citizenry, most people aren't criminals, but the small amount of criminals we have per capita could cause a lot of damage. I don't see how hard it is for people to understand that shit.
From a people that was tormented over 400 years, I can feel how they're feeling about this. And I just don't feel comfortable with this policy.
Yeah. So all of those individuals decided to change their vote after the Florida Attorney General came out and said, hey, what you're doing is illegal because essentially you are violating the state's ban on sanctuary cities. Okay, you cannot not allow the police to work with ICE to deport illegal immigrants because we don't allow sanctuary cities in this state, right? So therefore,
let me just stop it there for a second, kind of fast forward to the actual council meeting itself. Now, some people coming up and they want to speak, right? So let's get to that. Let's get to some of that part.
And you know Breaking news tonight at 6. You just heard the reaction after Fort Myers City Council reversed its previous vote and approved a plan to team up with ICE to crack down on illegal immigrants. Today, they voted unanimously in favor of allowing ICE to train city police officers. Good evening. I'm Kelly Burns.
And I'm Peter Bush. Dozens of residents spoke at the 3-hour emergency council meeting. A majority of the speakers were against the plan.
Your time is up.
Could I please have 2 more minutes?
No, ma'am.
I'm
Time's
staying
up.
on topic. Can I please have 2 more minutes?
Nico Torres, followed by Beatrice Jaquette Casser, followed by Angelique Vasquez.
Local taxpayers would also
Ma'am,
have to foot the bill for
ma'am,
legal
your
defense
time
when
is up.
officers are inevitably sued.
Shut the
or
microphone
detained.
off, please.
American citizens having their constitutional rights violated for the crime of being brown or bilingual.
Ma'am, you're disrupting the meeting.
City police are not immigration officers, nor should they be. Immigration enforcement is a complex federal issue requiring specialized training, legal knowledge, and resources that local departments simply do not have. Diverting police resources away from their core mission, protecting communities, weakens their ability to respond to violent crimes, theft, and emergencies.
I just don't even have the words right now to even express it fully. But that judgment, that decision you have to make right now, it's not just one individual. It's this whole city of Fort Myers.
I don't know if the council realizes that on July.
So listen, again, make no mistake about the fact that as a Black man, I realize that the vast majority of Black women are ultra liberals, and they're used as a conduit for all kinds of liberalism kind of things. And so when they come up there, it's always some bleeding hard shit that really matters to them from an emotional standpoint. And logic has nothing to do with their positions other than how they feel. Now, this man coming up actually has a skin in this game, right? And let him say his part of the story.
July 18th, 2008, Officer Andy Woodman was shot and killed by an illegal alien. Almost 10 years later, on July 21st, 2018, Officer Adam Jobbers Miller was also shot by an illegal alien and passed a week later on July 28th, 2018. If the law was followed and these two illegals were deported as they should have been, Andy's children would still have a father, my daughter Nicole would have a brother, Emma would have an uncle, and I would still have a son.
Wow.
State Attorney General James Uthmeier responded immediately, simply saying, good choice. He threatened to remove counsel and launch an investigation if they didn't agree to work with ICE. Madison.
See, this is my whole point. I'm gonna stop it here, right? What do you mean launch an investigation? There's no investigation to launch. These women voted against it because of their feelings. There's no nefarious thing to it. They just said no matter what the law is, we feel more for a few people who are here illegally, but they're our friends and neighbors, as opposed to getting murderers and criminals and rapists and all these guys out of the country. That's what it is. There's no investigation needed. You know what it is. You can't have whiny liberal people on councils to make decisions because they're going to always make a decision to what makes them feel good and right, not what is right to do. It happens. How many receipts do we need? If you go to California, all of California, everything they do is based on some liberal bullshit. You know what I'm saying? Forward bureaucracy, forward like how we feel, all kinds of mismanagement of funds and everything. So, listen, those ladies on that council did what women do. Move with their emotions. Now, that doesn't mean that men don't move with their emotions, but they move with their emotions outside of logic. There was no logic in what they were talking about. On their objections, it's just purely on how they felt. My city is not for sale. Nobody's selling your city. Your city relies on federal money to exist in the way that it does. And you're going to give it up because you're afraid of a couple of neighbors who are here illegally might get caught in the net. You know, so listen, all I'm just trying to say, this is a follow-up. They were going to try to push this meeting off until the 7th of April, and the pressure was too much for them to actually be able to pull that off. So all I'm saying is that it's a good thing that some folks, you know, came to their senses and said, listen, we can't allow this to happen. You know, this gentleman down in the lower right, this is his feed. I thought I had a clean feed, but this is his feed. He's a black conservative. His channel is a great channel, and you could go see a lot of good stuff on his channel. But anyway, listen, I have nothing more to say on this. Thank goodness that Fort Myers and a lot of other people, a lot of other municipalities in Florida are starting to comply, right? You know, Florida's a red state right now. It's a little purple, but they act reddish. How about that? And at least they don't subject their lower income communities to floods and floods and floods of illegal aliens sucking and sapping the scarce resources from the people in order to get votes for the Democrats in future elections. Anyway, on Payne, marriage, politics, and sports. Over and out.